Hey everyone, for today's build guide, I'm going to be covering Sir Lancelot. Sir Lancelot is a rightful alignment locked champion. You will need 13 points in the rightful alignment before you get access to his recruitment mission. Sir Lancelot is a pretty popular character because he is very different from the other champions. Definitely the most unique out of them, and this really helps him stand out. He has a lot of good abilities and a lot of different ways you could kind of build him depending on what role you kind of want him to fill. So because of this, he can really slot into a lot of different teams with a different kind of playstyle in mind. His damage dealing won't reach the same level as, say, other champions that have access to the rage ability because Lancelot does not have rage. But he does still do solid amounts of damage, and with the right gear, he does have the ability to build this up. So making him your main damage dealer may be a bit trickier, but is certainly doable if you like him that much. He does offer a lot of utility and support that no other champion does, so my thinking is leaning into that part a little more and maybe having him as a secondary damage dealer may be the best approach for him. But like I said, if you just really like him, you want him to be your one champion in the party, be in sort of center your team around turning him into your big damage dealer, that is also definitely possible. Starting with essences, I was kind of playing around with a lot of different stuff. A couple of these I may suggest you could put somewhere else on a different hero. Some of them I definitely think you should keep. We'll just kind of start with what I have on him and what my thoughts are and what I have on him currently. First, Essence of Extermination. I think if you're going to be using Lancelot, especially as your primary damage dealer, this one is pretty much mandatory due to the AP per kill nerf. He does not have AP per kill baked into his kit at any point, so making sure he has at least one does certainly help prolong his turns a bit and enable him to get a couple extra actions in if you are using his AoEs and targeting properly. He won't be able to get as much as, some other champions, but it's not a huge deal. But if he's your main damage dealer, you definitely want to stick this on him. I have the Essence of Annihilation, 10% weapon damage. This one I do generally suggest for whoever you want to be your primary damage dealer. If that's a Vanguard or a different champion, you may be running double champions, right? If you're using Lancelot and, like in this case, I was using White Knight. I would suggest putting this on them. Having more consistent damage dealing for them, I think, is more important. But if Lancelot is going to be your only champion, I think this is also a good pick. Essence of Crushing, plus 20% armor break. Same thing as the Essence of Annihilation. You usually want to give this to your champion. You don't want to give this really to too many other heroes. I mean, if you're running a Vanguard, it'd be okay on them, right? If that's your main damage dealer. But champions really specialize in armor breaking, so I think this does go best with them. If Lancelot's your only champion, 100% go with him. If you're running a different champion in your party like I am, maybe go to them. But this one, honestly, can kind of go to either. Both will be doing enough damage with this high armor breaking percentage that it's pretty similar in performance. So I think this is a good pick for him, regardless of what kind of comp you're going with. And Essence of Mutilation, 10% chance to deal double damage. This one I actually think you should keep with him. I generally won't be using him as your primary damage dealer, so having a chance for him to do double damage, sort of an RNG, does basically just help give him these extra windows of just bursting, popping off. And I wouldn't put this on a more main DPS because consistency, I think, is more key for them. So the four of these I currently have, I would say these two, Essence of Crushing and Mutilation, are the ones you definitely want to keep on him, because if you're running a double champion party and he's not your main champion damage dealer, Armor of Crushing is perfectly good on him. You can move it over. And Essence of Mutilation, you're not going to want that on your main DPS anyways, so definitely keep it on him. Essence of Extermination is a bit of a judgment call depending on your team formations. If he's your solo champion, I think this is okay. If you're running another champion, it may be a bit better on them. Or if you're running a Vanguard who's your main killer, maybe better on them. But I think it is a solid pick on Lancelot to help keep his turns going because he has no inherent AP per kill. Annihilation, I would generally suggest to move it somewhere else. But if you really want to go on Lancelot, have him be your main damage dealer, I would keep it on him. Lancelot is so... his position is really weird, and his role, he's just so sort of flexible and kind of spread out. There's a lot of things you can put on him, and a lot of things I would also maybe at the same time think could go to something else. I'm sorry, this is a sort of all over the place and kind of back and forth on what to put on him. It really does kind of come down to your team comp. For any other potential slots you may put on him, because you may want to move some of these to other units, I think Essence of Speed is good for him because he does have a lot of actions per turn, so getting that extra 8p to his base pool can be very useful for him. And then anything that helps reduce CC effects on him. So things like stun immunity, blind immunity, knockdown immunity, things like that. Any of those would probably be alright on him. Stun is probably the strongest one, but also one of the hardest challenges to complete because it involves you having to go around stunning a bunch of units. Now for his gear in general, I think you're going to be wanting to look for gear that provides damage bonuses, because he does not have any stackable damage bonuses of his own, as well as things that provide bonuses to his maximum AP. He has a lot of things he can do in one turn, so being able to use as many of them as possible is a definite boon for him. I didn't get any good relic armors for any of my heavy armor users on this run, so I don't have a relic I can really show off, but I think this piece does do a decent job of showing what kind of stats I like to get for him. -2 turn duration for incoming bleeds, not a big deal, but gain 2 AP for the first turn of each encounter. This is actually very good. Either it gives him more options to do things on his first turn, or it gives him extra AP to pass his first turn, which will combo into his tier 3 damage focus ability and really get him that damage boost for his next turn that he is a bit more dependent on than other champions. Regain 5 armor when drinking a potion. This is not a huge deal unless you're playing on like very hard or hard. It's not major, but it's nice. The one I really like here though is plus 10% damage for 1 turn for each hit received. It's just another damage boost to his next following turn to help compensate for that lack of rage. For his weapon, I currently have the Serpent Slayer's Mark, plus 5 damage against units larger than 1 tile. This will mostly be useful against like Fomorians, because most enemies are not larger than 1 tile. Plus 1 AP, that's sort of the main reason why I have it. Regain 10 HP while resting, that's alright. And then plus 10 damage during the first encounter after a rest. And again, it's just another damage boost coming from his gear because his skills won't give him quite as much as others. One weapon, if you run across it, that I think is probably the best weapon for champions right now, is what I currently have on my White Knight. It's the Sign of Epona. You may recognize this from my Black Knight video. I have this on him as well. It's an extra AP to the pool, provides movement AP, and extra damage for getting kills. I would only recommend the Sign of Epona if he's your main damage dealer, the one getting the bulk of your kills. For my formation, that is not the case, so that is why my Lancelot does not currently have it, but that is something I think you can look out for if that is how you want to build him. For the accessory, I have Eye of the Snake. This one is sort of a niche pick. It's 1 AP for the first kill on a turn. That's okay. Obviously, AP per kill from gear is a lot weaker now. But I really do like the Poison Cone skill. It's 1 AP, and in order to use it, it doesn't say this, you need to deal 75 damage to unlock the use of this ability. Then once you use it, you need to do 75 damage again. This is really easy for Lancelot, and this damage does scale up to his current damage dealing, even though it's a level 5 item. So it just gives him access to a really cheap AoE ability that does decent damage every round, sometimes multiple times in a round. There are other pieces of gear you could definitely replace for just straight up stats on this, something that provides, stacking damage bonuses from taking hits, dealing damage, or just provides movement AP, or provides normal AP. This one is definitely more a personal taste thing. I just really like the Poison Cone skill. I use it a lot, and it gets kills. Then lastly, we have Horn of the Giant Slayer, probably one of the best trophies you can get for a champion. Plus 2 AP, plus 2 movement AP, more mobility, more actions. Extra damage against Fomorians is alright. But the big one is plus 8 damage for area attacks, so that is boosting a lot of his abilities, and in this example, also his Poison Cone ability. Now, for skills, there's some basic stuff that a lot of champions have. I'll cover those really quickly before going into what's sort of special about him and what are really focuses. For the basic strike attack, we're always taking the increase in damage. applying vulnerability, and reducing cooldowns if you get a kill with it. Even if he's not your main damage dealer, he does enough damage to consistently get kills. You're going to want this. He has a lot of AoE capability, so we're going to lean into that a little bit. We're taking cleave and then just buffing the damages on it. Bleed at the late game is really not worth it in my opinion, and we don't want him chasing down targets with knockback. Taking armorer to give him an extra AP back from his heavy armor reduction. Given Lancelot's playstyle, which we'll kind of go into in a bit more here for a second, I actually do take the increases to his tankiness, as Lancelot, depending on how you play him, can definitely be in situations where he'll be taking a lot of hits. We're taking the extra area damage because he's doing a lot of area attacks. Melee expertise, mostly for the killing spree ability, but also for combat specialist, he does find himself outnumbered a lot if you're really leaning into his playstyle. And then damage focus, plus 5% weapon damage per unspent AP. With the upgrade, that's 8%. And then you get extra AP carried over into your next turn, and you get some armor. This is very useful for passing that turn 1 to get that damage boost for turn 2, and sometimes even passing a turn later on because you think you may take a bunch of damage. This readiness can let you pass your turn, weather the hit, and then kill them on the next one, instead of just doing damage to them on the current turn, not killing them, and then taking a bunch of damage. Now this playstyle I've been referencing, that's this ability here, Lone Wolf. The hero does an additional 15% weapon damage when not adjacent to an ally. So this sort of promotes him to kind of go off and do his own thing when you don't necessarily have to do that. As long as he's like 3 spaces away from the rest of the party, he'll get these bonuses. But that distance can definitely allow him to get a bit more surrounded and taking extra hits. So it's because of this that I took this extra tankiness, and this readiness I think can really come in handy. With upgrades, we're increasing the damage percent by an additional 5, so now it's a 20% damage buff. And Unburdened, he gets an extra AP at the start of his turn. He will have very high starting AP pools, and this does help make up for his no AP per kill. The other 2 upgrades is some Unbreakable Armor. It's so little, and I don't really stack Unbreakable Armor in my parties, so I don't bother taking this. And then HP per hit. This one is a bit more arguable, because he does have a lot of AoE, so he can get a good amount of HP back in a single attack. I'm not a big fan of it. We're taking Juggernaut. This one is pretty much a must on all champions, but Lancelot does have an ability to really take advantage of this movement through this next ability, Assault. He charges an enemy that is at least 3 spaces away, so it does have a pretty high range requirement. You can cover some great distance with this and immediately jump in, do a big hit, and start messing enemies up. You want to increase the range by 1, reduce the cooldown by 1. You want to use this as much as possible, plus 15% weapon damage for Assault, and then a big one is apply shock on them. This does combo with Juggernaut. This will count the space you travel while using Assault. Getting into Tier 2, you'll probably recognize a huge ability here with Inspire. 3 AP, grant 2 AP for the rest of your party for that turn. This is what really enables him to help be a support for the rest of his party. If he's off, fighting something, and maybe he can't secure a kill on whatever he's fighting, don't just waste his AP and keep swinging on him. Use Inspire, boost up the rest of your party, and let them go in and get the kills. For the upgrades, we're having it so it reduces the cooldowns of your party members. This increases the cooldown by 1, but that is offset by this upgrade, which reduces the cooldown by 1. And then lastly, also grant a movement AP. This just makes the move more efficient. So now at least if he uses it, he's losing 1 AP, but he has 2 in a movement, so it's kind of mitigating the net loss for himself. So that way he can still kind of do things on his own if you do like using him as a damage dealer. Next, I'm skipping out on power attack because my formation does run a different champion. You may want to consider this if he's your only champion, as it's an amazing single target ability. So I took Ice Spikes, 100% weapon damage cone, and with the upgrades, this becomes very strong and efficient for an extra 10%, reduce the cost by 1, and now it applies chill. My sort of thought process behind this is, you use Assault, you run in, you hit the first dude for shock, then you can hit him with Ice Spikes and maybe any allies near him, and now they're all debuffed. So if you like having him run off to take advantage of his Lone Wolf, now when he's surrounded by enemies, their ability to fight him back is diminished and he's going to be taking less damage, therefore making him safer. And then lastly, I took Radiance. Adjacent units become blinded, and the reason I took this is for the same reason that I just really described for the Ice Spikes. It's just damage control for when he's in situations fighting multiple enemies at once, while also being useful in a more support role, if he's following along with your party, staying closer to them, he can provide a strong debuff to enemies and therefore their ability to deal damage to everyone else. Blind chance, 80%. Very high chance they'll just miss. This also enables him to run away if he needs to, and very likely dodge the attack of opportunity. With the upgrades, it also applies chill. I just really like stacking the debuffs. Reduce the AP cost by 1. Also apply vulnerability, so now this one ability is applying 3 debuffs for the price of 1. It's an extremely efficient debuff now. And reduce the cooldown by 1. This one is sort of necessary. A 5 cooldown move is extremely long. A lot of fights don't last that long, but now this gives you a chance to use it multiple times if it's like a wave fight, a boss fight, whatever. Because this is a very strong move. As you can see, Sir Lancelot is very diverse, has a lot of really good abilities, a lot of things I wish I could additionally take with him, but there just isn't enough skill points to go around. Now, you can find these tomes that grant an extra skill point to a hero. If you plan on using Lancelot, I do think he is very much a kind of character you may want to save these up for. Even if he's not going to be your crazy damage dealer, he's just so diverse and has so much utility as a good secondary damage dealer and support. There was a lot I was talking about there, a lot of kind of back and forth. It's really hard to pin down a specific thing for him. In terms of your skill builds, I see this as kind of a pro and con. The con is it's really hard to give him a specific role because he's sort of spread out so much. And a lot of people tend to use their champions as their primary damage dealer, and he won't really be the best pick for that. You can make it work, but you'll have to work harder. But the pro side is you can bring him as a secondary damage dealer, and he can provide a lot of good utility, debuff support, all kinds of stuff. It's just a matter of, would you rather have him for that, or something like a Sage or an Arcanist, right? The current comp I run him in is Defender, 2 champions, and a Sage. It really works for me, so you may want to try that out. Enough talk, let's just go ahead and see him in action, see what he can do. For this first fight here, we have a lot of Sealy enemies coming at different angles. Probably going to have him take whatever comes around this side, as that's the side he's closer to. We're going to move him once, so now at the start of his next turn, he's no longer adjacent. He'll start getting those Lone Wolf bonuses. We're just going to immediately pass. Lancelot got a huge armor boost here. So now when he's getting pulled in, that's not really a big deal. 2v1ing here, no problem. So, our White Knight here, going to be doing less at the start, because he doesn't have the Lone Wolf bonuses, but as he continues to get kills, we know his damage will outscale Lancelot. So, it's kind of what I'm talking about, this kind of two sides to him. He does have some good bonuses, but his scaling ability isn't quite as good, so you can make him your main damage dealer, you just kind of have to devote more resources to it. So let's go ahead and get started. Oops. This is where I like to use Poison Cone. Very solid. And now, Lancelot, he can't assault, get over here, won't be able to finish off the other guy, though. So this is an example where I think I'd rather Inspire, and then just move my other ally in who can get both of the kills. In that first fight, you saw how Lancelot is a very capable damage dealer. He is very much able to go in and dish out some heavy hits, especially if you use that damage focus properly, and the mobility lets him get from enemy to enemy, and he can take out a large group of the enemy team in a single turn. With this fight, I kind of want to show off his debuffing capability. Here with these picked, we can see them. They're very close, easily going to start attacking us on our next turn. These picked warriors in particular have a rage ability that buffs their damage, and I want to heavily mitigate that as they come in. Lancelot, unfortunately, will not be able to kill them on his first turn, as he doesn't have his damage focus buffs up and running yet. So, what we're going to do first is we're going to assault, shock him, put Radiance down, So now he's shocked and chilled and blinded and vulnerable. He is blinded and chilled. We still have this guy over here. We're going to move, risk the opportunity attacks. They're blind, so they missed. Then we're going to chill him. And then we are actually going to pull him back. Now, at the start of our next turn, this team's comp uses the White Knight as my primary damage dealer. So on the next turn, after passing with damage focus, he should be more than capable of finishing off everyone else after they come in close. He popped invulnerability because of all the debuffs, but didn't have enough AP left over to even get close enough to do striking range, so he's basically just wasting his turn. The other two, however, they moved in close enough, but got no attacks in. This is just what we want. So now, on this turn, with our White Knight properly buffed up, we'll use our Inspire on Lancelot to give him the extra AP to help him ensure he can get all these kills. And we'll have him even soften these targets for him a little bit. And there you can see, I forgot about that archer, but now, due to Lancelot's first turn, heavily mitigating them, we took no damage from that group of enemies that are very high damage capable enemies that started right next to us. And through Lancelot's efforts of softening up the targets and even providing Inspire, gave our White Knight, or whoever your primary damage dealer would be in this situation, that much more AP to really just go around, kill whoever they needed to kill, and have enough AP left over, which then lets, in this case, my champion hit an even higher number. So there you have it. That is my Sir Lancelot build. You can see I definitely went into this as I was playing my file trying to build him as a main damage dealer, and he can certainly suffice as that. As you saw, he was going around killing the bulk of the enemies, leaving only a couple survivors left. And there's not much more you can ask out of a main damage dealer. I mean, asking for them to sweep the entire enemy team in a single round every time, yeah, you can do that sometimes, but especially with the AP per kill nerf, that's going to be a lot more rare. Killing everyone but one or two guys is effectively still winning the match, even if it takes an extra round. So, if you want to go main damage dealer route, I would keep these essences I have on them. You can maybe drop Mutilation for something else, a more personal pick, but you can also keep it. And the skills I have here do work very much for a main damage dealer. The only thing I'd sort of swap out is maybe Radiance for Whirlwind, and then maybe take out some skill points here and there where you think you may not need them to at least just pick up power attack, even if you don't have enough skill points to get the upgrades. Those are the only real changes I would make skill-wise if you want to really lean into that solo damage dealer. But he also has a bunch of support capability. He has tons of debuffs he can drop, especially if you take him into a boss who doesn't have 100% resistance to things, or you lower them because you also have an Arcanist who's putting hexes on them. All of a sudden you have one dude who's applying vulnerability, chill, shock, and blind. That boss is going to feel a lot less dangerous. Additionally, with Inspire, just really help enable the rest of the team to finish off whatever business there is left to finish if he doesn't have the AP left over in his pool to get the kills himself. He's just a very, very flexible, very versatile unit, definitely one of the most flexible and versatile in the game. So he's really cool, he's a lot of fun. Don't expect him to be doing super crazy numbers that, the Black Knight will be doing or the White Knight can do, because he doesn't have rage. So if I were to sum it up, I'd probably say he is good enough to be a primary damage dealer. You just need to work a little harder at it. He has some excellent support and utility, and that makes him very useful just in a broad range of situations. Build him how you want him. This build I have here, I think, is a good mix of damage dealer and support. I hope this build guide was useful and helpful for you, maybe even if it isn't something you would copy one for one, at least gives you an idea of what it is he is capable of doing and help you come up with your own build. As always, thanks for watching.